Hello there. This is, if you're on the day it's posted, Wednesday, June 22nd. Today's Bible reading is Song of Solomon or Song of Songs. It's called chapters 4, 5, and 6, and 2 Thessalonians chapter 1. And this week, if you recall, we're spending these days talking about marriage in general. I'm letting you read the text of Song of Solomon on your own. We're talking about marriage in general. Yesterday's video, I talked about how we need to communicate well, be assertive in what we were looking for, actively listen to our spouse. And today, I want to talk about how we resolve conflict. You have to be able to communicate first if you want to resolve any conflict. So practice that first. Go watch yesterday's video and follow that up a little bit. But I want to talk about conflict resolution. And I want to just share a few things that have enhanced my marriage. Again, my wife, Grace, and I, we've been married for 20 years now. We've had more than our fair share of conflicts, most of them caused by me, I'm going to be honest. I've learned to be less selfish than I was 20 years ago, and we've had to walk some hard roads together in conflict resolution. Here's a few things that I've learned. In my marriage, my wife and I, like many other marriages, would often find ourselves in the middle of arguments that were just circular. They would continue in circles forever and ever. Maybe you've experienced this. You argue this point, and then that point, and that point, and that point, and that point. Eventually you get back where you started, but you might even have switched sides by that point. It's a circular thing that doesn't end. And every time that happens, Satan just laughs. He cackles. Because he came to steal, kill, and destroy your marriage. And he loves every minute of it. To combat that, to overcome that, we want to have healthy conflict resolution. My wife and I, we have a spot in our home. Actually, looking back 2 or 3 homes that we've lived in, it tends to be the same spot that we have most of our conflict resolution moments. It's a spot, I don't think we ever chose it or decided upon it. It just became the spot. And so if you're ever at my house and you're walking into my house through the front door, through the living room, into the kitchen, you'll see the spot. We have our most fantastic conflicts right at the kitchen sink. It is the spot we've chosen kind of by virtue of just doing it there. I don't know why, but that's the spot. So my wife and I often find ourselves at the kitchen sink having conflict and trying to resolve that conflict. And rather than remember things that she did and throw them back out, and her remember things that I've done in the past to throw them out as weapons as well, we try to de-weaponize our conflict as best that we can. First thing we do is we want to identify the conflict. Remember I said yesterday, if you cannot name the problem, you cannot fix the problem. So we try to name the problem. We put it down. Maybe at one point even we used to write it on paper. We'd put it down. This is the problem. And then we try to identify, what have I done to contribute? What has she done to contribute? Now I don't accuse her. She comes upon her own, and the same for me, but we try to input how we've both contributed, because every problem is caused by both of us. It's never one-sided only. And then we begin to talk through ways in the past that we've tried to fix this problem and how they've not worked. Because if we're having conflict about it yet again, obviously our ways did not fully fix it. So we discuss that. We lay that out there. And then we begin to brainstorm some ideas. Every time I meet with a couple that's working on conflict resolution or communication, we do an exercise together. And so I'll encourage you to do the same exercise. The next time that you find yourself in conflict, take a moment and brainstorm 10 solutions. 10 solutions. Every time it's 10 solutions. And you might get in, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 even might come easily and quickly, but eventually you kind of run out of ideas. You're like, there are no more ideas. And so I tell couples, it has to be 10. This is required. 10 is the magic number, because at some point in the 10, we run out of realistic ideas and we have to start getting really creative. And we start to reach way far out. Well, we have a conflict about something and we have ideas brainstormed that look like this. Well, if I were to go out and purchase all the Walmarts, and then I would sell the Walmarts and upgrade them to the Targets, and I would go over here and I would go to the salvage yard and I would begin to build a robot that could come and work in my Target stores, and we could do this. If I did this, it would enhance our marriage. And that's absolutely ridiculous. I know, I understand that. But in the process of brainstorming the last few that are ridiculous, inevitably my wife and I begin to laugh. We begin to laugh. And I believe with every fiber of my being that if we can laugh, we can heal. Laughing makes things better. It doesn't fix anything, but it makes it easier to cope with, to move forward, and to find that bond. Because even when we're in conflict, when I see my wife laugh, I can remember why I love her so very much. And when I begin to laugh, she can remember the same for herself. So we start to laugh. And after we've had a few minutes laughing, finishing out our list of 10 ideas, then we begin to go back and we pick one or two that we're going to try. And we make a plan and put it in place to try that idea. And then we'll pick a time and a day. It might be in a week, it might be in 3 or 4 days, that we're going to come back together, probably to the kitchen sink, and we're going to discuss the plan. Did it work? Did it not? And if it did work, we're going to celebrate it together. If it didn't, then we're going to scratch it off and try another one of our 10 brainstormed ideas until we find something that works. This is the process that we use to resolve conflict. And it requires us to talk together, to be honest together, to laugh together, and to work together every time. One other thing that my wife and I have learned, and somebody told us this a long time ago, and I'll be honest with you, I'm not a doctor. I don't really know the science behind this, but I do know that it works. It's worked in my life every time, in my marriage every time. When we come together to talk, one of our goals to resolve conflict is to resist the urge to get angry. And I was told once that getting angry requires my blood pressure to rise. It's an emotional response to a physiological change. And if my blood pressure is going to rise so I can get angry, then oftentimes I find myself clenching my fists. When you're angry, you do this. Or you clench your jaw, or you put your hands in your pockets and you push down on something, or you'll cross your arms real hard, or you'll set your shoulders. We do that, and as our blood pressure begins to rise because we're tensing up, we can feel our anger rising as well. If we want to have healthy conflict resolving communication, we have to keep the anger down. And so here's a little trick. Try this out. Just humor me. Try it out. Next time you're in a conversation that you think you're getting angry with, just try to take your hands, open them, and put them palm up on the table. Just put them palm up. Uncross your legs and sit there. And with the inability to raise your blood pressure, you'll find yourself resisting anger easier. It also creates an open posture where you are ready to speak, to assert, and to receive, and to listen with your spouse. I am pulling for you. Jesus said the enemy came to steal, kill, and destroy your marriage, but he came to give you life to the full. That includes your marriage. He's pulling for you. And so try these things out. Try to come together. Try to talk about how you've contributed to the problem, things you tried in the past that didn't work. Brainstorm exactly 10 ideas. Laugh about some ridiculous ones at the end. Pick some to try. Work on it together. Come back together to assess it. If you do this regularly and consistently, I believe you can overcome mountains. That's my hope, my prayer for you. Hope it helps. If you have more to talk about, feel free to shoot me a message. We'll talk about it personally and privately. And until I see you again, you are sent.